send these estoppel agreements to the tenants directly, then the truth kind of comes out. Monthly rent, 500. So that changed our numbers dramatically because we were running numbers at 600 to 650 times 4.
Yeah, that's a lot of money you're not getting every year.
Then the property owner was upset because she had no idea that she had 2 big, huge cats. Previous renter and had 5 dogs. We did not keep that property manager on.
Yeah. They don't have a great track record if the landlord's currently
Yeah.
surprised by everything on the sheet.
And then we also asked them, do you have any problems related to your tenancy or repairs? So we got some essays on some of those.
Paige, welcome. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
me. Let's talk about Estoppels.
Yes.
Has this saved your butt before, or do you know somebody whose butt it has saved?
So the one time or the first time that we ever bought an investment property, we did estoppel agreements and we still ended up closing on it, but it gave us some insight to some information that was really good to know that we didn't get from the listing agent when we bought the property.
That's a good point. It could blow up a deal. I don't think of it that way, but it could absolutely destroy a deal. And some people don't want to do one because they don't want to blow up their deal, especially a wholesaler. Middleman might not want an estoppel performed because, well, let's define what the heck an estoppel is. In your words.
Yeah, so it's basically just an agreement that so if you're purchasing a property and it's already occupied, that's when you would want to do that. Like if you're inheriting the tenants in a building or in a property, that's where estoppel agreements are really beneficial because sometimes it becomes like a game of telephone where the owner of the property is maybe not sure what's going on with like the property management. And when they list the property, they're saying, yep, this is how much everything rents for. And then once you send these estoppel agreements to the tenants directly and ask them to fill them out based on what their agreements are with either the owner of the property or the property management company, then the truth kind of comes out sometimes if the leases maybe don't reflect some side agreements that have been made, or if they weren't completely honest on how much everything is being rented for.
Well, and for example, when it comes to side agreements, yesterday, my tenant said, hey, I can't switch from cool to heat. And they're right down the road. I said, let me run to the store. I'll just swap out because I'm pretty sure that the previous tenant snapped off the little plastic tab on the thermostat. So while I was at the store, I said, before I buy a generic replacement, do you guys have like dreams of having a smart thermostat or anything like that? Because I can buy whatever brand you, or I can buy it and you guys can pay me back if you want to own it. And then I'll just switch back to the generic one later on. But if you want a smart thermostat, now's your chance. And they're like, no, generic one's fine. But had they said, yes, I want a Nest brand or I want the Alexa brand or whatever, then they could have said that. I would have happily bought it for them. They could pay me back for it. And they would have owned the thermostat that they could take with them when they move out. Now, if I sold the property, what's the story? I got to tell the next buyer, hey, by the way, they own the thermostat. So when they move out, don't get mad. But if I forgot, who's going to tell them?
Right.
That's what the estoppel does. They'll fill out a piece of paper that says any custom terms and conditions, because it's not in the lease. You guys own the thermostat. It came up after the lease started.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that happens all the time, and people enter into these little side agreements regularly, and you just need to be aware of them. Same thing. What happens if it's a fridge? What if they bought a fancy fridge because they didn't want the basic standard rental replacement? They're like, listen, I'm going to buy a house in the next 3 years. I'd rather have my dream fridge now than wait for it. That's a great opportunity. So
Yeah.
tell me more about your situation when it helped reveal something for you.
Yeah, so I actually found them. And so we bought this property back in 2020 and I pulled up the listing. And in the listing, I'm going to go ahead and minimize this real quick. Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so in the listing, it says all units are rented for 600 to 650 per month. So this was in 2020 when we were looking at purchasing this property.
Sure.
And then the estoppel agreements that we actually had them fill out. So this is a fourplex. So this one was, how much is your monthly rent? 600. So this one was correct. But then as we went down the line.
By the way, this is pretty standard. Estoppels get written by hand and scanned in all cockeyed and like weird angles and stuff because real life happens and not everybody's going to use DocuSign and fill it out that way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So we have like when does your lease begin and end? Are you on month to month? Because sometimes they'll say, yep, these are all rented 6-month leases. And then it's like, nope, actually we're on month to month. We have the list the legal names of all the
Oh,
people
cool.
living
You've
in the
blocked it
property.
out. Great for the example.
Yep. And then when's your rent due, security deposit, because there's a lot of discrepancies with security deposits too sometimes.
Absolutely.
Did you pay for last month rent?
And some states require that the landlord keep security deposits in a secondary or a separate account and that all the interest on the money that's held be paid back to the tenant.
Yeah. Yep. So those are all good things to note. And then when was the last time you paid rent? What utilities do you pay for?
Yeah,
Do
is there
you,
a yard to mow? Who mows it?
yep. Do you pay any other deposits or prepayments? Do you own any of the appliances in your unit? So like what you were just talking about. So this one, we were told there were no pets in this building because it's a fourplex and everyone's kind of stacked on top of each
There's
other.
2 rats.
Yes, this one, you have a pet. Yes. How many? Two. Rat. So yes, she has two rats and she occasionally dog sits. This is supposed to be a no pet building. And then we also asked them, do you have any problems related to your tenancy or repairs needed? So we got some essays on some of those. But it's good to know because these are things that obviously the property
Yeah,
owner.
am I looking at replacing a water heater or adjusting the knob, right? If the
Yep.
tenants don't know stuff, man, you could just go twist the knob and turn it down.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then this was where we were like, oh, okay, hold on. So 600 to 650 a month, all of them are rented is what it says in the MLS.
Yeah.
How much is the monthly rent? 500. So that changed our numbers dramatically because we were running numbers at 600 to 650 times 4,
Yep.
and yeah, so her deposit was 500. And then this one, yeah, so do you have pet? Yes, two. She had two big, huge cats. So a Persian and a Bombay.
Whoa.
So then she's like, yeah, cats allowed. Previous renter and had 5 dogs. These are 2 bedroom, 1 bath apartments in a fourplex.
Yikes.
They didn't shampoo or clean before leaving. And then she had some problems and repairs. And then this one was 550. So we were like, hold on.
Yeah, that's a lot of money you're not getting every year based on those projections. Did you renegotiate based on that or no?
We did on a couple things, and the property owner was upset because she didn't know that she was pretty hands off on this particular
Oh,
property. So she had no idea that there was cats and rats and all sorts of crazy things. And like this one was
who
what was
allowed it? Was the property manager the one that
yes,
allowed that stuff?
yep, the property manager.
Wow.
Yeah. When was the last
Makes
time
me
you
want to
paid
run
rent?
estoppels on properties that if I had property management, just run an estoppel every year or so just because.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Because sometimes they're making side agreements and you're completely left out of the loop.
And you're bound by it. You've authorized them to enter into agreements on your behalf, and now you're bound by that lease.
Hmm. Yeah. And like this one, she said, when we asked when was the last time you paid rent, how much did you pay? She paid 300. And we were like, okay, so what's going on there? And then a lot of these, yeah. So this one was like,
This is a fourplex. 3 out of 4 have weird stuff.
yeah. And then this one, do you have any problems related or repairs? See back of sheet. And so
Oh
she
my.
had this entire sheet filled out of the problems she has with her unit. So
Hey, it's
yeah,
good to know.
it was great to know, but it changed a lot for us because we were in
The
the middle.
outside drain in quotes.
Yep. Yeah. And this has been a problem property, but we still have it. And I mean, it cash flows really well, but we bought it at a good
Oh,
time.
good. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Well,
this one ended up having like mold in one of
oh
the
my
rooms.
goodness.
And yeah, so all sorts of things that, the owner had no idea because she's not local. And then the property manager was just kind of not very involved, I guess.
That's huge.
Yeah. So,
That's great to find out. That gives you a lot of ammunition if you need to renegotiate. Like now, again, we go back to why a wholesaler might not want estoppels to be done, but if you're a buyer, absolutely.
yeah.
Now, our team is going to advocate for an estoppel to be done every time, anyways.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just
you absolutely should. I mean, it can ruin a deal. I mean, that one, if we were a little more picky, I mean, that was our first one, and we were looking for a fixer upper. We wanted to go in and,
okay.
solve some problems for people and stuff. So we were excited. We were like, okay, cool. But yeah, that would change things for sure, especially if the cash flow was tight and you weren't anticipating all these other repairs, or
Yeah.
cat
Did you
or
underwrite
rat.
the tenants at all? Did you care about that? Would you care in the future?
Even like vetting them, like running.
Yeah, credit score and things like that.
Absolutely recommend that. Yeah, yeah, because we ended up almost having to evict one of those inherited tenants. Inherited tenants are great because it cash flows like the day you close.
Yeah.
Not great because you weren't the ones that vetted them. So
Right. And you didn't build a relationship. Now, for an absentee owner, that may not make a difference in the property man. Now, I've also seen problems with property management companies not having any duty of loyalty to the new buyer.
yeah.
And they've
Mhm.
got you by the short hairs and they renegotiate the rate right then and there. They're like, oh,
Yeah,
our contract's not with you.
we did not keep that property manager on. So we
Well,
just
yeah. They don't have a great track record if the landlord's currently
yeah,
surprised by everything on the sheet.
yeah. They're
Wow.
like, we're paying you 10% to allow rats in the building. Like what?
Yeah. So you're continuing to allow pets, or did you send those tenants away, or what did you do about that?
So a lot of them were on month to month, and we did raise the rents a little bit because
Sure.
they were way below market. And then
Okay.
we kept most of them on for at least probably a few more months to a year, and then they all kind of moved on. One bought a house, and one moved back to wherever, and
Sure.
then one we did have to kick out because he quit paying. It was pretty much like a cash for keys kind of thing. We were
Yeah.
like, all right, we're just gonna, you go ahead, just please go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Cool. Well, the estoppel agreement, and we've got one. I mean, I can put it on screen real quick. Let's just talk through it real quick. Address and unit number, pretty straightforward. What kind of lease do you have? You want
mhm.
to find out, is it verbal? I'm going to zoom this in some more. Are you allowed to sublease? Like, find out what they think because they may think something that's not true. And this is the chance to rectify that.
Yep.
Who all's living in the unit? Plenty of times somebody else moves in and they don't update the lease.
Hmm.
And boyfriends and or girlfriends can definitely affect squatter status, residency, they establish residence, whether they're allowed to or not. Like all that stuff can make a difference in your life. Anyway, yep, you want to know who all is living in the unit. Now, getting every one of these answers may be a little tough sometimes,
Hmm.
but it's also important that you chase this stuff down and that you start the process early when you're buying a tenanted property. When do you think your lease started and ended? If they don't have that, that's fine. It's like, I'm not going to force, you got to pick your battles. That's not a hill to die on with a
Yeah.
tenant because if the landlord has a copy of the lease, then you're fine. Uh, Rent, how much do you think you pay per month? Well, I've been paying 500. Well, the lease says 600 and they just haven't cared because they're happy to collect 500 rather than argue and maybe not get 600. Stuff like that. Rent payments, can you show receipts, tenant owned appliances, pets, lots of discoveries there. Now, yours didn't have this breakdown of
No,
utilities?
it just said which ones do you pay for?
Yeah. So instead of trying to get them to remember which ones from scratch, at this point, I rather prefer to present a menu and they check which ones tenant, landlord, tenant, landlord.
Yeah, that's great.
Especially when you have like a 3 or 4-plex, and if there's any common area stuff, you need to be aware as the buyer. Are there any common area utilities that you have to cover, or are utilities flat billed? Because that's an opportunity for income possibly sometimes
Mhm.
as well. Yard maintenance on a 4-plex, I can easily see one person in a bottom unit being the one that does all the mowing, and they get a rent credit for it. That sort of stuff happens pretty regular.
Do not recommend doing that. Oh, I would say pay them separately. Like don't
Yeah,
take it off their rent.
yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. You pay them when they do it,
Yes.
how much security deposit, any special rights,
Hmm. That's big
and
one.
repairs. That's where you get your essays. That's pretty straightforward. And then they sign, and then the landlord is supposed to review these answers as well. The current owner should review and sign or have a discussion about any discrepancies before signing.
Yeah, that's great.
So every time you take over a tenanted property, you should be hitting one of these estoppel agreements for every tenant. And is it a
Yeah.
pain? Yes. Is it worth it? Yes.
We have put in the bottom of that sometimes an additional text box, an optional one for the landlord to say like, do you disagree, like anything you disagree with or felt they didn't add or missed, something like
Yep.
that.
Yep. Yeah, you definitely want to talk through it with them and or their property manager.
Yeah. I mean, communication is key on deals like that. Like if everyone's not on the same page, that's where things start to fall apart.
Yep. For sure. Okay. Any other advice or tips or tricks around estoppels or taking over tenanted properties?
No, I think that they're a great resource, and the one that you have put together is really nice. The one that we pulled was just like off of like a PDF from Brandon Turner's book that on like rental property investing or something.
Okay, cool.
But yours is really nice. That one, that's really helpful. And you might get pushback, but I would say just make sure that those get done because
Yeah, pick your battles, right?
yep,
That's a thing that we always run into as transaction coordinators. It's like, all right, which hills do we die on for this deal?
yeah,
Because this piece of information is handy, but it's not critical compared to, I only have so much interpersonal capital. I've only made so many deposits. Where do I want to make my withdrawals on, hey, you got to do this one.
right. Yeah.
I love it. Cool. Well, thank you for your input and your firsthand stories and the example. That's fantastic to see a live example that we can put on a recording.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing your resource with everybody. That's really helpful. And
No.
nobody talks about them enough. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.